ready for some ground squirrels? I am ready for some ground squirrels. Ubuntu 16.04 LTS has dropped, this time on Hak5.
Hello and welcome to Hak5. My name is Darren Kitchen.
Hello, and my name is Shannon Morse.
No, wait, you didn't like that? I thought it was pretty good.
I thought it was cute.
Yeah. Welcome to the podcast.
Welcome.
To the show. The YouTube video. What do we call this again? Yeah, it's Hak5.
Hak5.
There is no point in Hak5, in fact. We've been keeping it pointless for at least a decade.
We have.
Thank you for joining us today.
We're so off the cuff.
It is Ground Squirrel Day. I'm very excited. It's the day after 420, which means it is not Hangover Day. It is Squirrel Day.
Well, for us at least.
We're so straight edge.
I didn't go into San Francisco yesterday. Everybody else did. So today I am checking out not drones, but I'm actually checking out the new Ubuntu from Canonical. It's Ubuntu 16.04 LTS, the limited
time release. Download now while offers apply.
Long-term support version. It's called Xenial Xerus. Hopefully I said that right.
We're an Ubuntu shop here, so we get really excited when there's a new release because, I mean, most everybody here runs Ubuntu either as their main machine or as their secondary Linux box.
So I've had I've had Mint as a secondary Linux box for forever.
I'd call that an Ubuntu derivative.
Yeah, it's a derivative.
There's like a family tree where you can trace heritage back with like Red Hat and, you know, Debian and Arch, and I'm gonna give love to everybody now. So for the next half hour, we're going to list every single distro so no one feels left out. No, actually, let's go ahead and move on.
So I had quite a bit of a headache going into this because I was like, cool, it's the first day. I'm going to download it early in the morning because it might be super overloaded. Yay, torrents. So I downloaded Ubuntu 16.04, installed it on my computer, except I wanted to dual boot with Windows 10. The problem is I have UEFI or UEFI on here instead of a regular BIOS. So that gave me a bit of a headache because
UEFI strikes again.
Yeah, so I know from Windows 8 on here that using a live CD is very complicated. You have to like shift restart, go into your BIOS every single time, change it to legacy, save, then restart again, and then you have to go into these advanced options in Windows 8, and you have to do the same thing with Windows 10. So it turns out that Linux 16.04, trying to install it as a Ubuntu 16.04, trying to dual boot it, it does not recognize that I have a Windows boot manager. So I was like, you know I could fix it.
Yeah.
I know that I could like.
Wait. So you didn't fix it?
No, I just freaking erased Windows 10. I was like, listen, Windows 10, if you're gonna be a jerk, I will have to figure something out when it comes to reviewing apps on tech thing.
But this is your laptop. You just jumped right in. You're just like, screw it. I just converted because you made it too hard to dual boot.
Sorry, Windows 10, but I just broke up with you.
Wow! Ouch! Sick burn.
Sorry. I mean, it's actually UEFI. It's not necessarily Windows 10.
I just switched from Linux to Windows 10.
You have a Surface.
Yeah. Actually, no. You know what? I'm very excited that you're doing this.
I feel like that doesn't belong up here.
This is my 15.04 Ubuntu box.
Yep.
And it's now getting replaced with the 16.04 Linux box. Yeah, so good. The gigabyte with the quad core.
Well, I wanted to stick with this Acer Aspire S7 because it's a great machine, and I was like, if I have to download apps for Windows specifically for tech thing reviews, which I do have to do time and time again, which is why I've stuck with Windows this long, I'll just do that on my PC at home, or I'll just borrow Patrick's laptop.
You get yourself a VM.
So we're talking about 16.04 today. It released on April 21st if you're watching this in the future. So I've installed it. I erased Windows 10. If you didn't know, Xenial Xerus, well, the Xerus part stands for African ground squirrel. So that is why I have a squirrel on my desktop.
Oh, so cute. Look at that
He's so adorable.
Yes, he is. In fact, I think there's a resemblance. Would you not agree? Oh, yeah.
The adorableness?
Uh-huh.
Wait, hold on.
Uh-huh.
There.
Yeah.
So long-term support, or LTS, that's what long-term support is. It lasts for about 5 years. It's supported for 5 years. And then they have smaller editions, which are supported throughout that time. So this one specifically is going to be one of those.
Oh, wait, did you go vanilla Ubuntu?
Vanilla.
So you got the Unity experience.
Yeah, so I'm sticking with Unity right now for the review. I'll probably switch that up in the future once I start doing some customizations. But just for this, I'm sticking with Unity so I can explain to you the differences with 16.04.
Right, so if you're like me, who will be getting the GNOME Ubuntu flavor, because I love me some GNOME 3, then you're only going to get 3 years of support, which is fine, because you'll be on 18.04, which will be the next LTS
if you're
release.
Keeping your OS installed for that long without like cleanly reinstalling it,
no, that's
what are you doing?
It's Linux. You shouldn't have to. This isn't Windows 98.
Just upgrade.
Actually, I was going to say this isn't Windows, but yes.
So this version of Ubuntu brings some really interesting changes. There's quite a few different kinds of upgrades on the back end, so I figure let's go ahead and start with the back end. You know, the invisible spark we got going on right here. So first off, Linux kernel, that is what everything basically runs on. It's version 4.4. It does have some updates. There's an Intel Skylake processor update, so they're bringing in more support for newer laptops,
I've been waiting for this release for months to put on this machine.
Now, unfortunately, there's a lot of AMD users out there that require AMD Radeon for gaming and things of that nature. So unfortunately, for graphics-intensive purposes, AMD Radeon drivers aren't quite ready. So if you are doing like video editing or if you're playing lots of video games, I would suggest waiting and sticking with the older version of LTS support for the time being until they actually get those drivers upgraded and ready to go.
Yeah, and to their credit, AMD is also making a big push in open source. So I'm hoping that, you know, the bad times are behind us.
Yeah, they might be like trying to move over to their open source AMD drivers.
Let's see where it goes.
We'll see. There's some other random drivers now available. Like they got an upgrade for Corsair keyboards, which kind of works because today Corsair just announced a new keyboard as well.
It's a keyboard. It uses PC104 scan codes. How could you break that?
There's Logitech G29 racing wheel updates that are available. So for you racers, I don't know, some weird stuff like that. And there's
like one guy waiting. He's like, yes, I can upgrade to Linux now.
It's that one guy who's been arguing on the forums for this long is finally getting it. He's like, yes, finally, 5 stars.
Well, actually, if anything, I think this is more indicative of a major change in the industry in that we're seeing like gaming peripheral support is an important part of the whole Linux ecosystem. Now, why? Because Steam on Linux.
It's true.
You know, because gaming on Linux is a viable platform. So if anything, like with Vulkan and everything else, this is shaping up to be, hey, you know what, let's call it 2016. No, 2017. It'll take a little while.
2017?
Next year will be the year of Linux on the desktop. You can quote me on that.
And then there's a few other little updates. Toshiba laptops updates have been announced for the new 16.04 too. So yay, good for you guys. So now there's this additional upgrade for ZFS file containers. Kind of weird, I know, but pretty cool for file storage. So ZFS could be used in Ubuntu for quite a while now, but you have to do it kind of third party. So now it's fully integrated. It is supported by Canonical. ZFS basically combines a volume manager like LVM, for example, with a file system like ext4. So it sticks them both together into one file container called ZFS. So ZFS is really handy for anybody who wants to use an operating system on a server, for example. So if you want to run Ubuntu on a server, or for a NAS, so if you're running like FreeNAS on a NAS, ZFS can be extremely helpful in those cases because it stores the files and then it checks the data integrity often and very, very often via like checksums and a bunch of other mathematical algorithms.
This is super exciting if you're going to be like running a cluster of virtual machines and things of that nature. ZFS is like fantastic for that.
Yeah, it's great.
I know that there are currently some bugs with Zen, which is my preferred hypervisor right now. So just keep that in mind so you don't jump in and then realize like, oh, the file system no worky right now. But you know, it's early days.
So the other thing that they've introduced is this thing called snaps. So you probably noticed that the Ubuntu Software Center has gotten replaced by GNOME software.
Actually,
if you've already upgraded it.
I would say you may not have noticed because they kept a very similar icon and then renamed it from GNOME software.
The icon was upgraded, like updated to a different graphic, just barely, and they changed the name to Ubuntu Software from GNOME software.
Yeah. Thanks.
So,
hey, thanks for the cool
guys.
software, Gnome. We're going to take that and put our name on it and put it up in Unity.
I have my own beef with that. So the reason that it was replaced is because these new things called snaps. So snaps can be installed right alongside the regular Debian applications, the ones that end in .deb, which is what you use to install like every application on Ubuntu.
Right. Now, you actually just had to do this with installing Chrome, right?
Yeah.
You download the deb and then you go to install it.
Same thing with
and then
Wunderlist.
You do dpkg tac I, and then the deb, and then it'll be like dependency. So you have to select all the dependencies and install those, and then do the tac force and the blah blah, and then finally your application's running. So I mean, I love you, Deb. You're great. We know how you work.
I hate dealing with dependencies.
Right.
I'll be honest. It drives me nuts. Every single time I try to download something, it's like, oh, you need like 50 dependencies. I'm just like, really?
If only somebody could make
whatever.
Yeah, it's always libp. If only somebody could make installing software on Linux a snap.
If only. So, yeah.
I want to see what they did there.
Surprise, surprise. So in the case of snaps, they are self-contained packages. They have their own dependencies built in, so they won't need to change anything on your machine to run. So snaps are supposed to help integrate for application developers. It's supposed to help them integrate the whole suite of operating systems that Canonical is running. So from Ubuntu on PC to Ubuntu on smartphones to Ubuntu on TV, like
IoT stuff.
Yeah, exactly. So they're trying to make it easier for application developers to be able to develop just one program and be able to use it across multiple platforms. And I think that's really, really cool that they're trying to step out of just the desktop, just the servers and everything like that, and try to get into, more mainstream, which I hope is going to welcome more people into the Linux environment.
Yeah, it's a really interesting architecture. I love the whole concept of it. We'll see if it catches on. It seems to be the direction that many other things are go, for example.
Yeah.
But yeah, well, more on that later.
Yeah, so snaps, they don't touch anything on your computer. They don't change any of the dependencies that you're using for Debian. So, for example, if you wanted to download something outside of the Software Center, like a new desktop environment, so when you want to download your desktop environment, you could maybe use a snap instead of a .deb because it'll give you less risk because you're not changing all those things on the back system.
Right, and so I don't have that risk where something then updates and then breaks an application, which is the reason why, kind of getting ahead of ourselves, but I mean, remember like Backtrack, what was the #1 reason why penetration testers love Backtrack? It's because all these little esoteric tools, this one requires a Python library from 2.6, and this one requires a thing from, and then if you update this one thing, then it breaks all these other things, and it's just like, what a nightmare. So you end up with, sure, outdated stuff, but at least it all works because like every year or so there would be like a new version of Backtrack. Now rolling distros, Kali, kind of the direction that we're going. So this is just like a bolt-on top of that is going to make it much nicer going forward, because it's like, oh, I require that esoteric thing. Cool, it's just built in. And so when you update that other esoteric thing, it's not going to break everything. So less breaking everything.
So back to that GNOME software, or Ubuntu software as they're calling it. So this works just like the older Software Center, but it has more support for those new Snap apps, hence why they switched from the Ubuntu Software Center over to the GNOME software. So there are some new apps on the front end. For example, and I can show you on my computer, now built in, there's a new GNOME calendar, which is pre-installed. There's also a new webcam software that's pre-installed. All the Libre suites, they're still included. They have a few updates. And then we move on to Unity. So Unity, it's had a pretty big update. So Unity is changing from the old version up to 7.4. The biggest change is that online search queries are off by default in the dash.
Thank God.
Hell yeah.
That was like what you're saying is that when I type something in like banana into my computer, it's not going to start offering to sell me bananas on Amazon.
Exactly.
Great.
So of course, if you want to, you can still go over to your security and privacy settings, and you can go over to search and turn that back on, but it's so nice that it's off by default. I really appreciate that. Privacy advocates, I'm sure they appreciate it just as much as I do, because I didn't like it, searching that online search straight from my desktop. It's just kind of creepy. The launcher position can now be set to the bottom of the Unity desktop instead of just on the side.
Oh yeah, I saw the feature request. There was like people asking for that, like
apparently for years.
6 years ago.
Yeah,
but yeah,
I never asked for it because I kind of like it on the side. But if you want to change that,
I kind of like GNOME 3, so you know, whatevs.
So it's still kind of hidden. It still requires a terminal command if you choose to download it that way, but it is built in. It's just hidden. So the way you get it is through this dconf editor. It's dconf editor. You can just Google it and download the DE if you want to. But it opens up this completely different editor for all of these different like customizations on the back end. So you go under Canonical, choose Unity, and go to Launcher, and you can choose left or, and it's kind of buggy, and you can choose bottom. So it changes it down to the bottom, but I don't like that, so I'm going to leave it on left. So that's a nice little additional upgrade that they chose to create. Yay! The GUI does seem a little bit faster than the previous version, but that's just based on my own personal judgment.
Oh, are you on a Skylake?
I am on an older i5 processor, not a Skylake, but of course, this is a newer version of the operating system.
Fresh install. So.
I do have a fresh install. So
check
of course,
back in a few weeks.
Your findings may vary if you have different hardware. Your hardware may change everything on your operating system. Who knows? But my software center, that's one of the big issues that I've been having with this.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's my software center. It's just not.
No, it doesn't want to. You know what?
It just doesn't want to.
It's like maybe it's the one with the stone over
bug
today.
For me.
Right?
Yeah, maybe. Luckily, I have the terminal, so I can apt-get everything that I need. Yay! But which is great. I'm so glad you can do that in Ubuntu. Yay! In all Linux. Jeez.
Well, in all Debian-based, because everybody else is crying out about Yum and RPM and everything else. So, but we hear you.
But I'm glad that there is a command that I can run instead of just using the GUI, or else I'd be totally screwed. But I suspect this is just because it's brand new and there's still bugs for them to figure out. It might be because they're super, super busy and overloaded in the software center today, since it was the first day it was announced. Otherwise, I haven't noticed any additional bugs with the application or the operating system itself. So far, I'm enjoying it. And it seems pretty quick, and it seems like it's patched up a lot of issues that people have had in the past. And I like that they included all those back-end upgrades too for like the new processor. That's going to be a big one.
That's actually a lot of the upgrades that I've been waiting for. I mean, I literally have this machine right here ready to go, but the Skylake support wasn't there, and I didn't want to mess with the betas because you can install the beta and play with it. But then when it comes to the official release, like wipe that out, do a clean install.
Yes,
so what was the point?
True.
So I'm excited to get that going and then get my Windows VMs in Linux using a VMware Workstation, which is just like my go-to for the desktop side right now. But otherwise, I'm really excited about some of the more back-end stuff. Like they killed off.
Tell me about what you found.
Well, DSA kicking around for the longest time, not necessarily the best. Part of SSH and SSHD in Ubuntu is now killing off V1 support. So no more downgrade attacks, which is kind of fantastic. Just making things a little bit more secure by default. Those snaps, really excited about that. We talked about dependency hell now. Gone, well, hopefully. If this gets adopted, it really depends on whether or not developers want to pick this up. The framework seems pretty simple, the way that it's like, the architecture is based on parts and plugins, and the way that you put it together is with this pull, build, and staging system that like kind of compartmentalizes everything. It seems like if it gets adopted, well, I hope it does, because on the one hand, you get isolation. Yeah. Which means like everything, if everything runs in a sandbox, it's not going to mess up the rest of your system. Yep. And then if your system updates some stuff, it's not going to break your other applications. So that sounds cool. And it means that if that does get adopted, less and less we will be like adding PPAs to our stuff, which is always a good thing for security. Yes. Otherwise, so the snap packages, I'm very excited about. The rollback feature on that is kind of nice.
What is the rollback feature?
Well, just the whole idea that if you can do more quicker iterative development where you can just like run something because you know that it's not going to break other dependencies that everything else on your system is relying on. Yeah. And so you can like run it, test it, and be like, nope, this is bogus, and then roll back to a previous version without it altering all of the peripheral dependencies that other applications on your system may be depending on.
So true.
I can see how this can get kludgy quick if you've got tons of snaps and you have duplication. Supposedly, updates are done with like differentials, because since it's going to include libraries, or potentially can include libraries within the application for all of its dependencies, I mean, you're talking about really bloating the system there if you've got like 14 versions of Python 2.7. Hopefully that's taken care. I haven't dug in enough to see, but it is interesting that when they update the apps, they only get the diffs, so you don't have to duplicate code that you've already downloaded. That's good. Otherwise, I did not. Did you do version 15.10?
No,
so
I didn't.
So
I skipped that one.
Yeah, I'm going from 15.04, so I'm like on a every year I like to format.
Yeah.
And so I missed the big change, but now it's for me and everybody else. The big change is the first time introducing in a long-term support version is System D is now taking over everything. It's replaced Upstart. Which replaced SBin in it, which replaced probably a million other things.
Okay.
I mean, I still find myself using initd and all sorts of stuff anyway, so whatever. I guess, I don't know, I haven't dug in enough. Really, it's just going to change like service start whatever to sysctl whatever start. But there's a really good link in the show notes that I'll put about learning how to figure out that, because you just have to wrap your brain around how everything is done in units, and then you've got services and journals, which are like basically services like you're used to, and then your journals collect the logs.
Cool.
I don't know. It's just a different way of thinking. But I heard that they're putting in a full software center in System D. They're going to put in a word processor application. It's going to be really great. We're all just going to love running System D in the future. By the way, if you're watching in the future, please comment below and let us know what happened so we can see. No, we can't see them until then. Damn it. YouTube comments, you are sorely lacking.
Oh, sorely.
You know what isn't sorely lacking?
What?
Our awesome sponsor.
Ooh.
See what I did there? We're going to take a quick moment to thank our awesome sponsor, Domain.com. And if you've been following Hak5 for a while, you know how much we love them. They make it super simple to take your awesome idea and get it onto the internet, because the domain registration system is phenomenal. It gets your website up and online in no time flat. And Shannon and I have been using them for the longest time. They have been awesome to us, and they're huge fans of Hak5, which is why they've got a special coupon code just for you guys. You can save 15% off when you check out at Domain.com when you use the coupon code HAK5. And in addition to that, you know what? Go ahead, even if you're not going to get Domain today and you're just thinking, well, that's rad that they're supporting Hak5, you should tweet them at Domain.com and say, hey, thanks for supporting Hak5. And when you think domain names, think Domain.com. So Shannon, as soon as I get this Surface Book and I get it all loaded up with Premiere and Photoshop and Illustrator, because of course Adobe, get on the Linux already, does this now mean I should just format this thing and go 16.04 Ubuntu?
You know,
replace Windows completely?
Given that I've only had like 8 hours with Ubuntu 16.04, and you do use Windows for a lot of graphical editing and video editing purposes, not necessarily. It really would depend on your own.
But you just did.
Your own uses.
You just jumped right in.
I don't edit on this machine.
You should have seen her in her office. She's like, screw it, I'm just replacing Windows.
I pretty much like threw my USB, my like Windows ISO USB across the room. I was just like, I don't need this anyway.
But she also has a gaming rig at home, so you know.
Yeah, I do. It's still on Windows
I'm
7.
looking forward to hearing the trials and tribulations of Linux on the desktop for the Snubsy Boo.
I'm super excited.
In a couple of weeks, because let us know like what tweaks she should be doing on a fresh install. We'll get back to you on kind of the pain points. Already run into a few like minor stuff.
Yeah.
SMB is fun. Yay.
Yep. SMB. Yeah, that's a good time. And of course, keep in mind, we have some trips coming up.
Oh,
Yay!
This is very exciting.
Yeah.
You can sign up on the Hak5.org now. So sorry, that's now, bloop, bloop, looks great.
Oh, it's there now?
Yay.
Okay, good. Well, if it's not, you can go to snubsy.com/blog to find all the information about my meetup in Tokyo, Japan on May 23rd. Keep that bookmarked just in case we have to change venues.
Yes.
Or just follow @snubs.
That's always
Twitter.
a good call. And I forget the date ours. It's going to be early first week of June in Sydney, Australia.
Sydney, cool.
So Sebastian and I will be there. We're going out for AusCert, which is a big security conference in the Gold Coast. It's going to be a lot of fun. So I'm looking forward.
Tweet us if you're going to be there.
Yeah, I'll be on the southern hemisphere. It'll be exciting. Never
The toilets
that.
go backwards down there.
Do I have to sit on them backward? Like what? How does that work?
You do, actually. You have to sit on them backwards. You have to like.
What? See, this is why people should be following us on
Really weird.
Snapchat.
It's like some weird stuff.
JK,
we're on
LOL,
Snapchat.
Hak5 Darren.
Snubsy.
Okay, so with that, feedback at hak5.org is actually the more appropriate place to send us your feedback and not anything inappropriate. Hakshop.com is another fantastic place. Hakshop.com. If you've been seeing Hak5 for the longest time, we're like, you want to support us directly, we make awesome, fun hacker gear. If you're into, penetration testing, you will find an arsenal awaiting you over at hakshop.com. And thank you for supporting us all these years and allowing us to do this.
I'm hungry. Sorry, I just got a hunger pain.
Random?
Like, I want some potato chips.
See, you need to support us, otherwise we're not going to be able to afford the potato chips for this one over here.
Hak5.org/follow.
Social media links there will direct you to all the fantastic places where you can find the smiling hosts of Hak5. And if you would like to be a smiling host of Hak5, stay tuned get yourself a Google Cardboard or other VR viewer, because we're going to be having a fun experimental edition of the show next week, which will be fantastic. I will see you there. Like, subscribe, tell your friends, and with all of that, I'm Darren Kitchen.
I'm Shannon Morse.
Trust your technolust. What just happened there?
I don't know. It got weird.
Okay, let's go with it. Okay. Shannon, I love doing this show with you.
I love doing this show with you too.